It is one of the most progressive places in the country, and nearly 4 years after Oregonians voted to decriminalize hard drugs, the move has ignited controversy, some even advocating to make them illegal once again, making this state a cautionary tale on drugs. In tonight's Prime Focus, our Ashan Singh looks at the dilemma the state is now facing. All sides admit something isn't working. The question is, what now?
Oregon is 3 years into a revolutionary approach to treating drug addiction. But in one of the most progressive states in the country, some are getting cold feet.
You just don't see as many police stopping people on the sidewalks for using drugs.
The voters of Oregon were misled about what path we were going down.
It didn't create homelessness, it didn't create crime. But I think by almost everyone's accounts, it's made all of those things worse.
It hasn't worked. We are still in an addiction crisis. We are in a housing crisis. Measure 110 cannot fix that.
In your mind, was ballot measure 110 a mistake?
We are going to walk through downtown and offer some information and resources to our community and the houseless people.
Thanks to a ballot measure in 2020, small amounts of lethal drugs have been decriminalized in the state, and open drug use is a common sight.
I come from downtown, I come from being homeless, and I accepted and asked for help and needed a lot of resources and received the help. So today I'm out here helping my people because I've been there.
You've literally been there.
Yeah. How you doing, my friend? Have you been down to the BHRC Center?
Rico Mejia.
Hey, man, good to see you.
Walks the streets of Portland with a group of volunteers from local advocacy groups.
I'm with the BHRC outreach team in Sarah.
To find people who may need treatment.
We get you down to the center and you can get a shower.
Getting those in the throes of addictions into treatment can sometimes feel like a losing battle.
Can you explain sort of this idea that recovery is a process, it's a continuum?
This is about small victories, it's about shelter, it's about building relationships. We're out here letting people know the information about our center, and a lot of times it takes people a while to receive the help. They are not going to make that split decision right away.
In 2020, voters approved ballot measure 110, which decriminalized possession of small amounts of some drugs. It provided funding to addiction recovery services, using some of the revenue generated from legal cannabis sales in the state. Basically, if you buy marijuana from a dispensary in Oregon, you're partially funding resources that help people suffering from addiction get back on their feet.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good.
That money helps people like Dan Hood.
We're going to discuss those 4 applications we put in. Okay.
He's looking for a steady job after a few false starts getting sober.
The new position, the staffing training with Central City Concern, just opened up today.
Let's go for it.
Do you remember trying it for the first time?
I do. You feel like you can do anything in the world. You have the most confidence. Just feel unstoppable, you know?
And in that time, how often were you using and what were you using?
I was using heroin and meth every day. And then later on, I started doing fentanyl every day.
What do you want people across the country to know about this process, about what it's like, about what you guys are maybe getting right or wrong here?
The harm reduction helps a lot, man. I think it helps people get more honest. They can open up more rather than trying to hide.
You hopeful about your future?
Oh yeah, I got nothing but to look up.
Dan credits his success to Recovery Works, an organization run by Joe Bezegi, who helps addicts get into treatment. The Recovery Center opened a year ago with funding from Measure 110.
Come on in. Welcome to Recovery Works Newburgh. This is opioid replacement therapy. So if I take this medicine, fentanyl will not have the same effect on me.
People come in completely addicted to fentanyl and get on our Sublocade program, and you'll start to see people truly change. When they're not spending their time chasing fentanyl and they're feeling good, you know, they can really be productive members of society.
We provide safe injection equipment, so a variety of different syringes.
Haven Wheelock has been working in harm reduction for decades. Now she runs a harm reduction center in downtown Portland.
110 allows us to engage them and help them get the supports before that transition to injection happens.
And she also helped write Ballot Measure 110.
What have you made of the public outcry against Measure 110?
It's made me sad that people want something to blame.
Does it feel like a scapegoat?
It definitely feels like a scapegoat. I feel like people are blaming Measure 110 for problems that existed before 110.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon has some of the highest rates of addiction in the country. We have some of the lowest access to treatment in the country.
Mm-hmm.
The crisis here has been here for a long time.
How about public use, not just possession?
Public use is a messy scenario.
Yeah. Kind of a loophole.
It is a loophole, but the solution isn't putting people in jail for it. The solution is making sure people have access to housing, making sure people have safe places to use and safe places to be.
Right now, people who get tickets for open drug use are given a choice. Pay the fine or call a hotline that will direct them to treatment services while the fine goes away. Portland police are on the front lines of open drug dealing and drug use and see their duties constantly changing.
It's gone from like property crimes to stolen cars, and for the last year or so, year and a half, it's been predominantly fentanyl, where fentanyl has basically become our full-time job. But it is not a crime to use drugs in public in Oregon currently.
So what do you guys do when you do see someone using in public?
If we have outreach workers that day, we offer you the chance to talk to an outreach worker, but you're going to get a $100 citation for possession of a controlled substance.
Mm-hmm.
I provide you with a treatment card. It has the screening number. That's the card.
This is the card?
You call that number to do a health screening. My understanding is they'll also pay the ticket for you.
The hotline is now seen as a symbol of Measure 110's shortcomings. After 3 years and over 7,600 drug violations, only about 200 calls have been made.
What's frustrated you about all this?
Every day I tell people about Measure 110, and we're years into this, where I'm like, oh, it's a $100 citation and the treatment card, and people are like, well, I voted for that, and then they're upset with me about it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
Point blank, do you think Measure 110's been a failure?
I just work here.
3 years after the controversial policy took effect, Oregon residents want to see a change.
The issue is that they didn't implement all of the things that were needed for it to work properly here, such as shooting or smoking sites. Those implements were not in place, and so it hasn't worked.
I think maybe some changes that make it so that it's not quite so public.
A coalition of local business owners and citizens threatened to put the issue back on the ballot this fall.
How many more youth do we have to lose to this? How many more young adults do we have to bury before people start realizing it's not working?
That coalition put pressure on the legislature to fix what they see as obvious issues.
This is a kind of notorious corner here.
Max Williams is in charge of that coalition.
Everybody wants people to go to treatment, but the actual consequences of that policy and how it's worked out on the ground just didn't deliver. We decriminalized the drugs 90 days within the passage of the measure. And simultaneously, at the time, we were ranking 49th out of 50th nationwide in access to treatment.
In your mind, was ballot measure 110 a mistake?
No, I don't think I'd go as far as to say ballot measure 110 was a mistake. I think that there are pieces of it that need refinement.
Do you and your colleagues feel pressure to get this right?
Well, every time I do legislation, I feel pressure to get it right. Mm-hmm. That's fundamentally why I'm here. And legislation is really hard.
You mentioned the houselessness and mental health crisis that have existed in the state and in the city of Portland long before Measure 110 was ever introduced. Does it feel like Measure 110 is sort of a scapegoat for these pre-existing issues?
I don't think it is fair to say that somehow ballot measure 110 caused what's happening. And I think fundamentally Oregon was really unprepared for the crisis that is fentanyl because of our lack of treatment options. And we just have to fundamentally think differently about how we attack that.
Last week, the state legislature passed a bill that aims to fix some of the concerns about public drug use. Under the new policy, people caught with drugs could spend up to 180 days in jail, far more than Democrats had hoped for, and far less than the year-long jail sentence Republicans were pushing for. The bill also gives the option for a conditional discharge, allowing people to choose treatment over incarceration. But Oregon lawmakers know there's still more work to be done.
There are real issues that we cannot continue to just allow to go without an answer, because there's no magic wand that is going to somehow solve the drug crisis. It just doesn't exist.
A hard reality. Our thanks to Ashan Singh for that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.